Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Independent National Electoral Commission INEC has upheld Umar Iliya Damagum as the constitutionally recognized national chairman of People's Democratic Party PDP, dismissing claims by Abdulrahman Mohammed, a loyalist of the Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike, to the national chairmanship position. INEC, in a formal acknowledgement and recognition of the Damagum-led National Working Committee, responded to Damagum's correspondence and deployed election monitors for the PDP governorship primaries held on Saturday in Ado-Ekiti. By monitoring the Ekiti State PDP governorship election primary, INEC affirmed the Damagum group as the party's authentic leadership. Joining us on the show to discuss the various court rulings and counter rulings by different judges as contenders fight for the soul of the PDP is Magaji Mato, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, excellent. We're so glad we can connect with you this morning. Let's go straight in. So, for my introduction, I've talked about how INEC has recognized Ambassador Umar Damagum as the acting chair of the PDP. However, we know that there are court cases, there are matters in court currently. The PDP is yet to have the convention, which will happen this weekend, hopefully, to elect a national chairman. I want to ask from a legal perspective, what does this represent? INEC affirming Damagum as the chairman of the PDP. What does that also mean for any future rulings around who is the acting chairman of the PDP currently?
Well, thank you very much. We're talking as a lawyer, I think it's obvious. INEC has been constitutionally saddled with the responsibility to handle election issues and matters in Nigeria. And at any time, INEC is a body that regulates the activities of all the political parties we have in Nigeria. So if you have a situation where INEC recognizes a particular person as the leader of a party, political party, I think that does it as a supreme position, unless and otherwise such decision of INEC is challenged in courts and to be set aside. But for INEC to recognize the Damagum faction as the authentic national chairman of the PDP, that remains the position, and that remains binding on everybody, including all other members of the political party.
Okay. Now, let's look at the convention itself, because we're currently sitting with two court rulings. Federal High Court in Abuja says that the convention should be stopped. Federal High Court in Oyo is saying that the convention should go on. What happens in this type of conundrum? From a legal perspective, my understanding is that these two courts are equal. So which ruling then becomes the standing order of the day?
Like I promised you, I'm going to address whatever I'm going to say. I'm going to speak as a lawyer, and then I will be speaking from the point of view of law. Now, the cardinal principle of law is that where you have two judgments from a court of coordinate jurisdiction or from the same court, just like in this case, both of the rulings are from the High Court, the latter becomes binding. That is the law. Even when you have two conflicting judgments of the Supreme Court, the position of the law as settled is that you should abide by the latter judgment. So that is the law. In this case, you have the judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, sitting in Abuja, and you have delivering judgment some days or some weeks back, and then you have another court at Baden, sitting and giving judgment. These two courts are courts of coordinate jurisdiction, just like you identified yourself. So when you have two conflicting judgments, the latter abides. That is the position of the law.
Okay, so that means that if somebody were to shop in a different, in a court, Federal High Court in a different jurisdiction, and those ones ruled to stop the convention, we can technically go to all the states around Nigeria until the person who gets the last judgment becomes the winner. Is that what you're saying?
No, you see, I just told you what the law says about two coordinate decisions of coordinate courts. But if you are coming from that direction, I can categorically tell you that all these things that are going on are not really healthy for our democracy. And then I will not be an advocate of a situation where parties are not able to settle their differences and then are not able to also understand and have smooth running of their activities. But speaking as a lawyer, if you have two coordinate decisions, of course, the latter one abides. But it's not to say that I am supporting a situation where you have foreign shopping, people running from one court to another. That is actually not very healthy for the democracy. But the law abides more than any other thing that you can think of.
Okay,
My opinion will not replace the position of the law at all.
Okay, so a couple of questions here. Does the state court in Ibadan have, jurisdiction over INEC? That's number one. The second point I'd like to make is, let's not forget that judgment is an ex parte. And the talk about ex parte orders have been talked about. It is, in fact, this week, I think about Wednesday, that's when the court in Oyo will now listen to the arguments. That judgment was just an ex parte order, which should terminate this week. Then they will now listen to the argument. And that's going to be before the convention on the 15th. And also add to it that the Wike faction has now reported the judge to the National Judicial Council and Disciplinary Council for that ex parte judgment. What's your take on all of these issues?
Yes, matters commence in court in the way and manner they are presented to the court. In most cases where you have an urgency, a situation of emergency, lawyers prepare and file motions ex parte along with motion on notice in conjunction with the substantive matter. Now, the fact that you have an ex parte order, it doesn't mean that there is no existing suit. It's a suit that commenced in that ex parte order. And then, of course, gradually it will move on to the motion, interlocutory application, and probably down to the substantive matter. But then coming back to the issue of petition against a judge, of course, if there is such petition, it is the duty of the agency to look at it. And then if they feel there is any reason to take on the judge with his petition, I think they have their grounds. But the good thing about this situation is that he would have his day also in the agency to respond, because if they file the petition, he will also serve with a copy of the petition, and then he will respond and state there will be reasons probably that he will come in his defense, and the agency will look at it. But like I have stated before now, the law is when you have two conflicting decisions from the court, from the same court.
But there was a question we asked that does the state court in Ibadan have jurisdiction over INEC?
The High Court has jurisdiction. It depends on the subject matter. And then, the High Court, the jurisdiction of the High Court is even wider than that of the Federal High Court. So it depends on the subject matter. I am not privy to the processes that are filed at the State High Court in Ibadan, because that will determine whether it is argued, whether it can be argued that the State High Court in Ibadan does not have jurisdiction or it has jurisdiction. Depends on the processes filed and the reliefs that are being sought, and probably the grounds of seeking those reliefs. So it depends on what before the court. But I know for sure that in most cases concerning INEC and electoral issues, you have a situation where both the High Court of the state and the Federal High Court having coordinate jurisdiction over some of the matters that I know.
Okay. All right, I'd like to say a very big thank you so much for your time. Senior Advocate Magaji. Thanks for spending your morning with us.